So often we talk about creating Laravel projects, and in the past, Laravel has had different ways of implementing authentication. In Laravel 8, 9, and 10, or even 11, there was Jetstream, we had Breeze, and we had all of these cool tools that basically handled it for us without us really having to do too much. Unless we wanted to add custom fields or anything like that, there would be some small configurations. But the thing that gets missed a lot is that what's lying underneath all of those packages is Laravel's default authentication system. Laravel has always had this, at least as far as I'm aware, and I've been using Laravel since 4 point something. Basically, when Laravel 4 turned into Laravel 5 is when I started using it. I know that back then it was already baked in, but it's not something that we really spend too much time on. I have some projects coming up and I'm going to be using the default installation, but I want to go through this first to make sure that everyone is on the same page with what we're doing, where things are coming from, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to basically build out a small authentication system for ourselves, just so that you can see how it works and where things are coming from and things like that. Now, we are going to be sometimes referring to the documentation, but I am going to just go through things in the order that I prefer to go through them. And that's how we're going to do this. If we go to the security tab on the Laravel website and go to authentication, you can see that it does suggest that you use a starter kit, and that's absolutely fine. The only thing about doing that is it's already using the default authentication system. So everything we're going to do, these starter kits pretty much whip it up for you without you having to do much. It creates the pages, it creates the routes, and it adds the functionality from the core Laravel vendor folder. So we are going to be using these. We are going to do logging out, registering, logging in, password confirmation, just what Laravel actually already comes with. So that's how we're going to do this. Now, what I have gone ahead and done is created a very basic Laravel project where there's no authentication set up, there's nothing set up, and this is pretty much where we're going to be starting from. Now, if we head over to the terminal and we take a look, you can see that I have absolutely nothing in here. In the composer.json, you can see that we're going to be using Laravel 12, and it doesn't really have anything in here particularly related to authentication. And the same thing in the package.json, where there's only Tailwind, Axios is in here, Laravel Vite plugin, Vite's included, Tailwind's included, and that's just where we're starting from. Now, as I said earlier on, Laravel already has an authentication system baked into it. So where do we find that information? Well, let's see. If we go to our vendor folder, and we head down to the Laravel folder framework, the source folder, Illuminate. This is where all of the facades, all of the collections, everything involving Laravel is in here. So if we go to the Auth folder up here, you can see these are the things here that really deal with the authentication. So whether it comes from the passwords or making notifications, so when a user registers, basically linking everything together, this is where everything pretty much is. We have must verify email, we have the session guard, token guard, generic user, and these are all things that we can use to create our own setup for authentication. And that's what Jetstream did, that's what Breeze did, and that's what all of these other packages that include Laravel's default authentication system, that's where this stuff is coming from. The first thing that I want to do is, let's say, go back here, and I want to close this because it doesn't need to be open. But how I want to do is I'm going to create a controller, and that controller is going to house all of our functions, everything that we're going to need. That's where it's going to be housed in that controller. So I'm going to go ahead, open up a terminal, and in here I am just going to do PHP artisan make controller. I'm just going to call it auth controller, and I'm not going to make it resourceful. I'm not going to make it invocable. We'll just create our own routes for this. And I'm also not going to include any models or anything in there. That's just what we're going to have there. So let's go back into the code and see what's going on in there. We go to app HTTP controllers, auth controller. And as you can see, we have a brand new clean authentication controller. And this is what we're going to use to house all of the information we're going to need for our register, login, email system, all that stuff is going to be in here. Now, because my back isn't going to allow me to do all of this in one video, I am going to split it up over the course of a few videos. So today we're just going to be dealing with the registration and login. So let's go to our web routes and start building that out. So I'm going to come under this route here, and I am just going to say routes get register. This will be our register route, and we'll use that auth controller. Make sure to import it, class. And what this is going to do is it's just going to display the register view. So that's what I'm going to call it, register view. For the name, of course, it'll just be register. So we'll make both of these routes today. We'll do login, and this will be the register. Instead of register, it'll be login. Login. We have the controller imported. We have the routes made. Let's go ahead to that auth controller and start building that out. The first one is going to be to register. Get rid of that. And actually, it's going to be register view. So I'll do that here. And this will be the login view. What are we going to do? Well, I'm just going to use blade files. We're going to keep it very simple. We're not going to do anything too crazy. And that's what we're going to do. Now, since we're going to be using blade, all we need to do is just return view. And I'm going to put it in an auth folder, and that auth folder will be called register. Copy that. And I will bring it here, paste it in. And we'll change this to login. And now we can go ahead and create those views. So we'll come down to resources, views, and we'll create our folder here. We'll call it auth, and we'll say register.blade.php, and then we'll say login.blade.php. Now, if we go to the browser and we refresh this, you can see now we have a login link and a register link, and then we can go back and forth because those pages do exist. Now, nothing's going to be on there, obviously, because we didn't put anything in here, but we do have the links in here. Now, why do we have the links in here? Well, if we go ahead and take a look at that welcome.blade.php, because that's what is being displayed on that page. If you come down here, you see that there is a conditional that's saying if the route has login, which we do have, then you're going to display the dashboard login. And then if the route has register, then it's going to display the register link. So all of that is already baked into this welcome blade. We don't have to do anything else with that. So we have our routes to our link and our register, and that's how we were able to go back and forth. Now I have created an assets folder, which is going to be included in the repo, where it is going to basically be our templates for these pages. So I have a register, login, forget password, reset, verify, email, as well as a dashboard, a temporary dashboard for this. This, as I said, will be included in the repo. If you are a channel member and you're seeing this before it's been released publicly, there will be information in the members section to basically point you in the direction of this. You won't need to download this. But if you are not a channel member, then for now, until the small series is over, there will be a Google Drive link to this folder so that you can download all of this and have it. Once the series is over, you won't need that link anymore, and everybody will have access to the code where that'll be. But for now, this is what it is if you are not a channel member. Now, because we have the register here, I am going to just basically copy all of this out. And in the register blade that we have here, I am going to go ahead, paste that in. And as you can see, we have links to the different things. And let's just really quickly see what we have here so that we can see what we need to edit. Go to register, and you can see a basic layout for it. Again, we're going to have to fill all of these in. And I believe I got these from Flowbyte because I really like the way that they have it. This is how Vuetify has their input fields, and that's something that I do like. But anyway, let's go and fill all of this in and then take it from there. Now, before we start filling this in, I want to do the backend stuff first so that we can have that set up and plug everything into the front here. So let's go ahead and start with the web route. And I am going to create a route group. And this route group is going to basically hold all of our authentication stuff, mainly because everything is going to need the same middleware pretty much, right? The middleware I'm going to put on here is just going to be guest middleware. That's already part of our setup here. That is middleware that we already have, which means that now we can just move all of that in there. So then we have everything together. Under this register route, I'm going to create a new one. And it is going to be post. It is going to be post to register. And the function for it is going to be called register. The name that we're going to use to call it is going to be register.store. We'll do the register first for this because I don't want it to get too confusing. So I'll save that. We'll go to the auth controller and start fleshing that out. Now, because we also have validation, I'm also going to include that in here as well. For now, we'll also need the request variable because we are going to be grabbing information from the front end to attach to our server. I'm going to make a variable and I'm going to call it validated equals request validate. And there are tons of ways to do validation. This is just the way that I find to be easiest for what we're doing right now. And it is very detailed so that you can see what's happening while it's happening. For the name, all I want it to have is validation to make sure that it is required. I want to make sure that it is a string. And I want to make sure that the max characters on this will be 55, 255. So the next one will be password or email. It'll be required string, lowercase. It has to be an email. We'll also keep it a max of 255 and we'll make it unique to the user class. Make sure to import that. This should be @models_user. And the request is already up there. The next thing that we need is the password. We are going to have password confirmation as well, but we don't need to have a separate validation field for that because we're going to put it here. It'll be required string, and to get that confirmed password input, we are going to make sure that it is confirmed. That's all. And then instead of max, we could put them in, we could put something along those lines. I'm not going to, but we could. And I want to use the password from the Illuminate validation rules. And I just need the defaults method from that. Where we looked before in the vendor folder, that's where this is coming from. And it already pretty much defines how the password will be accepted, right? So our validation setup is done for that. And now we can do validated, because we're taking that validated variable from up here. Password equals hash, because we want it to be hashed when it goes to the database. Make sure to import that hash facade. Make validated password. All we're saying is that the validated password that we are validating up here is going to equal the same validated password, but make sure that it is hashed before it gets input into the database. Then we are going to create a user variable, and we're going to say user. Make sure to import that one. I believe I did already. Make or create. Now we can just say validated, because we already defined the validated fields up here. We've adjusted the password, and now we can just pass it in. For this, I am just going to return user. We will redirect to a dashboard page, but as you can see, we haven't created that yet. So for now, we will just return the user. And that's good for right now. Let's go ahead and add that to the register blade. We have the title of register here. We have the form. We have an action for it, which is just going to be to the route register store. And the method will be post. We also need the CSRF for CSRF protection, and that should be good. So we have name, email, the value. And for the value of name, Laravel has a really good helper function in here where we can just put name. And basically all that's going to do is if the validation doesn't work or something happens with the validation, it's not just going to empty out the input field where they have to retype it. They can see what they typed in and then go ahead and fix it accordingly. That's what that old is doing. It's just keeping that field to stay the same as what was input. Now, a couple of things I want to do too. First, I want to set it up so that we can use the error helper. This will be name. And then here, we'll bring this up. Instead of some error here, this will now be the message so that when we do get an error, it will display a message. Now, there are two things that I also want to add to this validation in here. Since we are getting the errors from here, we can add errors to the label and the input. We'll start with the label. And here I'm going to put at error. See if it works like this. Sort of. This will be a name. And then we can put it in here. For the input, this is going to be a border red of 600 at an error. And I'm going to copy this so that I don't have to retype that. And for this label, I'm going to paste this in here. Make some room. And this, instead of border, it will be text so that the label will turn red if there's an error. And the bottom portion of the input will have a line of red. It'll have a border of red at the bottom if there's an error. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for the rest of these. In fact, I'm going to do them now that you've seen me do them, and then I'll come back. Okay, now I have gone ahead and done all of the fields. The only one that I didn't do was confirm password, of course, because our password validation is going to come from the password field and not the password confirmation field. But the type, the name, and the IDs all match up with what the fields are in the database, and that's how that's going to be registered. So let's come down here, and since we also have a route to the login, we don't need this anymore. We can do route login. Okay, let's go and see if we can create a user. Go ahead, refresh this. And first I am going to submit. And as you can see, this is what our validation is going to look like. And if we do something on the password like that, or password, we'll say password. And then for the confirm password, we'll say 1. We should be getting that password confirmation does not match. If we hover over this, we can see this goes to our login page and everything else should be good. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this in, submit. And now you can see we have created a new user named HeadyFox with an email, created at, updated at, and the ID of 1. So that is currently working. Now, the other thing I quickly want to do is I want to create a quick dashboard so that we have somewhere to go after we register instead of returning that user. So I'm going to come over here and then I'm going to create another controller really quick. And this I'm going to make invocable because we're only going to need the one page for it. And sometimes people ask me why I don't just do this in the web routes is because when people are learning and you do things too different from how it would normally be done correctly, that puts sort of a barrier between how you learn things. So I try to do stuff so that it's almost as like a full project as possible so that you can see how it works. Instead of just dumping everything in here, I could dump every route and everything in here, but I find it's much easier to not just dump everything here. When you're building a real project, you're going to be using controllers, you're going to be using other things. You know, if you're using blade files or whatever it is, however you're doing it, I just want to make it as easy and without too much resistance to be in the way of how you're learning. So I'm going to make another route here. And this one I'm going to call dashboard. And I'm also going to put middleware on here. But for now, let me make sure I created that up top. Dashboard. Okay. So we'll save that, web routes, come back here, and this will be dashboard controller class name will just be dashboard. Let's quickly make that view. Return view dashboard. And I forgot, I do need to put middleware on this because you shouldn't be here if you are not authenticated. I'll add it to the end of here. Okay, hopefully that should work without a problem. And while we're in here, we're not going to need the request, so I'll get rid of that. Removed unused imports. Add missing return types. This is a view. So let's come down here, close that. Let's go and grab the template for this. Right in here. Just copy everything in here. Go ahead and save that. That should be good. Now that we have an actual route for the dashboard, we can go ahead to our auth controller. And now when we create the user, we can now redirect. I'm just going to do to route dashboard. Now to route is also the exact same thing as redirect route dashboard. These are two of the exact same things. It's just a different way of writing it. This is the way I'm going to do it. Let's go try to register a user and see if we get redirected. Create a user, submit. As you can see, we have been redirected to the login. Remember, we put dashboard under the authenticated middleware, but we haven't actually logged in our user. Yeah, we created it, but we haven't logged them into our system to be able to hit the dashboard. So let's go and do that. Now, the easiest way to do that is to, after the user is created, it's passed validation, they're good to go. We can use the auth facade to now log in that user. And let me make sure to import this. This is the auth facade. Okay, let's try to do it again. Go back to register. I am going to refresh this. We're going to fill it in again, submit, and now we've been redirected to the dashboard page because now we are officially logged in. So before we go any further with fleshing out the login page, what I want to do is, if we look here, we have the same layout that we do for each of these pages. Everything pretty much has the same thing. What I want to do is I want to create a layout file so that we can separate this a little better and reuse the layout for each of the auth pages. We have 5 of them. Let's go ahead and do that. And this is going to be very simple. I am just going to come down here, and in the views folder, I am going to create a folder called layouts. And I'm going to call it auth.blade.php. And then from our auth folder, I'm going to grab the register, and I'm going to copy the whole thing just so that we have everything in here. Put it in the auth layout and start filling this in. We'll just do it straight from the top to the bottom is the title. Now, each of the pages will have their own unique title, but part of the title will be from the layout. The title of the page title itself, is going to be config. This will be up in the browser, right? So we can do config app name as a fallback Laravel. But what I also want to do is I want to put a pipe in here, and then I'm going to yield the title. This is what we'll put in the pages. Get rid of that second one. Now what this is going to say, if there's no config app name, there's nothing in the environment variable, then what we can do is use Laravel as a fallback, but then it'll be pipe yield the title. So it'll be pipe register, pipe login, pipe whatever. That's what this is saying up here. The other thing is I have the imports from Tailwind CSS straight from the website. This is just from the CDN, and we don't need that because we have Vite included, so we can use Vite. So we'll say Vite, and then we'll use the resources, CSS, app, app.css because that's already baked into the project itself that comes with the defaults. It'll be resources.js, app.js, and this way we won't have to keep refreshing the page when we save something. Go ahead, save that, and let's continue on. In this second div here, you can see we have the title, we have our form, and then we have a footer where we have this stuff here. Some of our pages are also going to include content other than the form, and so we're going to account for that as well. So from here, right under the second div, I am going to yield. We'll say header. Here will be content. This will be for our forms for the register and login page, and this will be the footer. So now we can go ahead and get rid of these. Now we can go to the register, and since we have everything here, we can sort that out. I'm just going to drop this, and then here we can extend the layout. So it's going to be coming from that layouts folder, and it will be that auth blade. Then we'll have a section, not like that, like that. This will be title, and the title of our page is register. And we don't need to end this here. We'll add another section. This will be for the header, form, footer. Let's get rid of this stuff here. Get rid of that. We have a title. We can now grab this whole thing. This will go in our header. We'll have our form. And then we'll have the footer. Get rid of all the rest of this. And let's make sure that this is still good. I don't have a logout set up yet. Okay, so I'll open up the inspection tools. I will go to application, and then I will manually log out that user. This sent us back to register. Fine. Register. So now everything looks the exact same way. As you can see, the page title is up here, type register, and then everything else is the way it's supposed to be. Let's just try our validation. That's still good. Let's continue on. Now, since our login is going to be the exact same pretty much as our register, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here so that we have that layout. We will change this to login. Login. The route will be to login. The name is not needed. Emails needed, passwords needed, confirm passwords not needed. And the footer will be different. Let's go ahead and grab that from, need to make sure there we go. Let's go ahead and grab that from the templates. So in here, if we come down, everything is pretty much the same in here. I'm also going to add a remember me. I'm going to grab this, bring that over first. That will be under the password, but before the submit button. And this will be part of the footer. And we don't have the forgot password yet, but we do have the login, so we can get rid of this. or we have the register. Let's see what we have. Login store not defined. Very true. We haven't done that yet. There we go. So we have a remember me, we have the name, and then we have a forgot password and register and submit. All of this should be good. Let's go to the controller and set up the functionality for this. Okay, let's head to the auth controller, and I need to add the return types. Now for our login, this is also going to need a request. And in here, instead of validated, we're going to do credentials. But this validation is going to be really easy because we only have 2 fields. So we'll say email, and then we'll say that it is required and an email. Password is just going to be required. We are going to do an if statement, and then we are going to say if auth attempt, the credentials that we are validating, if I can spell it right, credentials. I'm going to save the remember for in a little bit, but right now I just want to do the credentials. We'll say request session regenerate, and then return to route, or I'll do return redirect intended dashboard. If the credentials pass, then we'll go ahead and do it. And if not, then we'll return back with errors. We'll say email, and then we'll make a custom message for the email. So the provided credentials do not match our records. And for that, we'll say only input. And the only input that we'll need is really the email. We're going to validate the credentials. We're going to attempt to log in. If it's successful to log in, if the credentials pass the attempt, the session request will regenerate itself. It'll return intended dashboard. If not, then we return back with errors, email, provided credentials. Let's go and see if this works. We need to grab a user. Make sure to save this first. I've gone back to using Beekeeper Studio because I do quite like it, and it lets me do what I need to do. So I'm just going to copy this one. Make sure to refresh that. Make sure to use that email, password, submit. And now we're logged in and we are at the dashboard successfully. Let's go ahead and log this user out so that we can do the Remember Me functionality. Now, Remember Me is super easy because it's just an input field, right? We're going to be accepting it just like we do with these. I need to add the return type, which is a redirect response. And when we are attempting with credentials, we are also going to include that request remember. And that's the field, the input field we need to make sure is set up in our login. We'll come down here and we'll go up to that Remember Me, which is right here. As you can see, the name, the ID, it all says remember. That's the request that we're going to be getting to the controller. Now, because we have added that to the request, these fields will all be already filled in. We don't need to do anything else for this. Let's go to the front end and see what that looks like. Go ahead, paste that lady back in, password. Well, actually, I'm going to not put anything in just to make sure that we get the validation. Submit. The password field is required, and it's gotten rid of this. Let's go and sort that out. Now, since we took that from the register, that means that I didn't put that in there either. So let me go and make sure I do that here. Password, I'm not going to have a value on there. Let's go back to login, make sure those are in here. And actually, instead of having the validation on here like this, with login, I don't like them to know what they did wrong. And so I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to get rid of this one as well. Make sure I get rid of these. Typically, what's done on the login page is to loop over them up here. I'm actually going to grab this. If errors, if there are any errors, then we'll do, okay, I don't know where my limit is, but here we are. We'll do for each errors as error, but because we're getting all of the errors, we need to say that here. Error. Okay, let's try that. Email field is required, password field is required. Great. Now let me grab that email address again. And before I submit, what I want to do is I want to check the database real quick. If you look at the remember token, these are all null for all of these users. Click submit. We've been redirected. Everything should have gone through. Now, if we come over back to this table and we refresh it, you can see that now this user that we just used, that we just logged in with, now has a remember token. So that's all that the remember me does, is it includes this token. It regenerates after a while. Once you log in, everything sort of changes every time you log in, right? This token will change. And this is also not a required field. Now, the last thing that I want to do today is I want to add some of the buttons to this so that we have more information on this dashboard. We come over here and we go to that dashboard blade. Here we can change the title. Let's do it the same as we did for the auth routes. I don't think I need these. And let me grab this Vite. Now, this A tag where the user is, I am just going to send this back to the welcome page just so that we have a route for that. And I don't think that actually has a name, so I'm going to change this to URL/. And now, because we have an authenticated user, we can give that authenticated user a actual name. And we have a route for dashboard, so let's go and add that. And for now, I think that's it. We are going to add logout functionality too, but I'm not going to do that today because I am pretty much wiped out. But let's go and make sure this looks okay. And as you can see, Rhonda Merrill is the name of our user. We have a dashboard link, and then we can also go back to the welcome view, which has now a dashboard link. And as I showed you before, this is already baked into that file. If you're enjoying the content, please go ahead and click that like button, as it really does help out the channel. Here's a video YouTube thinks you'll like, and here's a playlist to follow along. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.